hoping that we do have the bloody on the line. Good afternoon, my elder. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, can you hear us?
I can hear you very well. Thank you. Good
Oh,
afternoon.
fantastic, fantastic. Good afternoon to you.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. How are you?
Very well, my elder. I hope you're doing fine.
Man, I'm doing fine. I've been doing a bit of resting
Yes,
after the
yes.
book launches, but I'm glad and happy to be here today.
Great, great.
Mm.
Well, the last time we spoke, you came and spoke to us about some biblical issues, and today I want us to focus our attention to your book.
Yes, sir.
The book that you have been working on that has come out this particular year. I do want to check with you. I'm trying to look at the dates. When did the book come out?
The book came out in July. I think it was around the 10th of July when the first batch of books arrived.
Uh-huh.
And it was really, really exciting for the book to arrive. But we officially launched on the 30th of July
Uh-huh.
in Johannesburg, as well
Uh-huh.
as on the 13th of August in Cape Town. So yes. Otherwise, the book has been around since early July.
Uh-huh. And what is the name of the book?
Man, the name of the book is A Gap in the Cloud. A
Uh-huh.
Gap in the Cloud, Zama. Let me just start by saying I really appreciate the Adventist World Radio and its attempts and efforts to really spread its wings and to be more visible, and the support it gives so that to people like us, so that we can talk about things like this. So this book is called A Gap in the Cloud,
Right.
and the subtitle is Turning Tragedies into Triumphs.
Mm.
Mm.
What informed this title? I do want to. In fact, before we come to that,
Yeah,
why did you want to write this book particularly?
man. This book has been building up in my mind for a long time. In fact, some beginnings of the inklings started to take place when I was in hospital in
Uh-huh.
2011, 2012, when I started to scribble and write what I was observing about what was happening in my life when I started to go through what we're going to be talking about in the book. And then since then I had all sorts of notes in my what you call this the journals, my diaries and all of that. So I started scribbling things, but then the actual writing
Mm.
came during COVID-19 when we were at home,
Yeah.
when we went through what was happening. And as I was at home and looking at the damage that COVID-19 was causing and the fear that we all had, the sense of trepidation to say, will I be next who's going to be affected by COVID and even die?
Yeah.
There were families that were dying, not just one member, but many members of the family that were really going through pain right across the country, in fact, right across the world. So that caused a sense, which I call in the book, a phobia, which is called achitophobia. This phobia is a
What
sense.
what kind of what's the name of the phobia?
It's called achitophobia.
That's
Uh,
big English. Okay.
it's basically a phobia, which is the sense of fear of failure, tremendous amount of failure, of saying, if I were to die now, what would people think about me? What would I leave?
Ah. Okay.
What would I leave behind that
Uh-huh.
would be helpful and adding value to society? What legacy am I going to leave? So it's that fear of of dying with nothing to show for it.
Uh-huh.
And so when I got to that, excuse me, when I got to that, I remembered a story that I had read some years before. This story is about a man who was walking in an unfamiliar area in the woods. He got into a road which was like a forked road where you can either go right or left. And he took the left and finally found himself into this privately owned farm. And there was a guard there, a security guard who was guarding the farm. And so, but the man did not see that he had moved into this which was like a private property. And so that man who was a security guard saw him and he asked the question with a loudspeaker, who are you and what are you
Yeah.
doing here? And this old man, he looked at him and then he said, who are you and what are you doing here? And this man, old man, said, man, how much do they pay you to do this work? Because if I were to employ you and give you double that amount for you just to give me these two questions every day, my life would be a better person. And so I had those questions to say, all right, it's COVID. The economy is decimated. We shut into houses. People are dying. Hospitals are overflowing. The system cannot cope with what is happening. The world system, that is, all sort of political system, economic systems, health systems, just family systems were just under so much stress. My questions then were, who are you and what are you doing here? And so this book is one way to answer that question, is one way to answer both of those questions, to say, all right, I came to this moment of COVID with a life, but what is it in that life that I can now use and share with people that would add value to them, that would basically help them to navigate the crisis and the tragedy that we're going through in a way that would not be um, it would be when they would not be angry, they would not be
Yeah.
blaming, but in a peaceful way. So this book, the gap of the cloud, the gap, a gap in the
Get in the
cloud,
cloud.
is really my attempt to give hope to people, both now during COVID and into the future, whatever kind of situation that people find themselves in.
I now can see what informed the title of the book.
Okay.
Because well, I'll try and guess because when we are having clouds and you see that gap, that gap gives hope that
Yes.
at last it looks like there's going to be warmth coming, because there's that gap now that we see, and the
Exactly.
clouds are going to begin to be opening,
Exactly.
and we'll see sunshine and we'll be happy. So that gap in the cloud denotes hope. I don't know if I would have guessed well there.
Yes, I think there are two levels. The one that you just said, it's a very good broad level. In other words, a broad reason. But there was an immediate reason that I chose this title.
Right.
At the time, I was traveling from here in Johannesburg, and I was going to a town called Pietermaritzburg here in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, a small town there.
Right.
And I was traveling on a very small plane. And as we took off, the weather was fine here in Johannesburg. But as we got closer to Pietermaritzburg, there was tremendous amount of weather change that brought with it high, strong winds, rainfalls, lightning, thunder. The plane basically was being battered to and fro, such that, and it was a small plane, such that the captain then said, ladies and gentlemen, when we get to Pietermaritzburg, please, the cloud is so thick and it's so dark. What we're going to do there, we're going to circle a couple of times. And then when we do the circling, and then we cannot find a way to land, we're going to go to Durban, which was about 90 k's away. And it was in the evening. It would have been a big inconvenience. And I fell back to sleep. And then I overheard him after he apparently he had done his circling. And then he said, ladies and gentlemen, we found a gap in the cloud. And and as he was saying that, he was breaking through those dark clouds, heavy with rain, lightning, shattering our experience. He was making his way down through those dark clouds. And so that day, that evening, man, this image stuck in my mind. And I started to take my pen and my diary, and I started writing this thing. And that evening, when I was at the hotel I was staying at, I just couldn't sleep. This image of a gap in the cloud started to form in my mind, and I realized that my life has been about gaps, but about clouds, but there have been gaps that has come through in all those clouds, such that I was able to be where I was at the time and where I am now, because not because of the absence of clouds, but
Yeah.
despite the clouds, but because of the presence of those gaps. And so that is why I wrote the book and gave it that title called A Gap in the Cloud.
Gap in the cloud. Beautiful, beautiful story, actually.
Mm,
Quite lovely, very, very lovely. Now, Mr. Kulati,
mm.
one thing that I want to find out, what are some of the main themes that you're hoping people to pick up from the book?
Okay, maybe the best way to do this is to ask your listeners, when Azama, the listeners who was listening to your radio program as we speak now, is to ask this question: have you ever had a life-threatening experience? And then at the same time, whilst we're having a personal life-threatening illness, at the same time you get into a professional livelihood threatening crisis. These two things going through you, or you going through them, you're together at the same time. So basically, what the themes of this book are about: personal crises and tragedies that we go through, but also professional and leadership crises that we're going through. And how do we navigate those things without the feeling of shame, the feeling of anger, the feeling of blaming, the bitterness that normally accompanies us when we're going through stuff? So, how do
Yeah,
you use those experiences in such a way that you can then dig out stuff, tangible stuff, for people who are maybe your friends, your family, your colleagues, people that you worship with, people that you work with, so that they can themselves use these tangible strategies to be able to overcome. So basically, the book is about the values that I soaked from my upbringing.
yeah,
You see, the way that we are in life most of the time is anchored in our background.
yeah,
So in my background, there's a lot of values that I got there, values that enabled me later in life to deal with the struggles that I had to deal with, including this life-threatening crisis and the livelihood-threatening crisis. So the first thing is the values, and the family is part of those values. Values of honesty, values of hard work, values valuing people. Also, it's about overcoming systems that are designed to destroy you. When I grew up in a place called Port Alfred Ecawa,
okay,
in
all
the
right.
Eastern Cape. That is where I was born. And when I was born, my father and mother, as soon after I was born, I hear that they separated. And then I lived with my maternal grandparents. In other words, my mother's mother and father,
Yeah, yeah,
as well as other people. I thought some of those people were blood brothers and sisters. We would sleep on the floor, wake up in the night, and just pull each other's blankets. It was just a nice environment to live in. We would go to church. My grandparents did not get an opportunity to go to school, but they insisted that we go to school. So school was another value. Church was
Yeah.
another value. Family was another value that I learned. But then,
Mhm.
whilst this thing was happening, this growth was happening, there was an a system, an apartheid system that basically, if you read the book, I describe in vivid details the way that the town was. We had long drop toilets. We had no tarred roads. We would stand in queues waiting for water. That was rationed at certain hours of the day. Our schools were dilapidated. In fact, I studied at a church school, which was made up of mud. And there was a teacher there, Mrs. Nkwinti, the wife of the former Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development, Gugile Nkwinti. She was my teacher. When I started bunking school because of the pathology and the social dynamics of the area that I was growing up, where boys my age were dropping off school, and I was actually going there, she spoke to me one time, and she said to me, "Listen, in South Africa, under apartheid, the future of a black child is far better off with education than without it. Do you want to join all of these people that were working in the chicories, that were working in the, as now these places, the golf, as golf caddies? Do you want to carry
Yeah,
on?
yeah, yeah.
Do you want to be one of these boys that are working in the gardens and so on? No. And when she spoke to me that day, I changed my life. So those are some of the values and the themes of this book that basically I'm talking about. And then there's the whole issue about uh, my father, because as much as my father was absent for half of my life at
Yeah.
that time, he was not really absent in the sense that I didn't know him. He was, but during December he would come and I would visit and all of that kind of stuff. But we did not have a strong father-child relationship, and
Yeah.
yes, a father-son relationship. But when I was in my teenage years, I went to live with him. Man, it was when I saw what it was to be a family man. I
Okay.
realized that I might have been angry before for things that had happened between him and my mother, and I had no control over that.
Yeah.
But now, when I saw him, I saw the good side of him, and I saw what he was trying to do with the new family that he had, my younger brothers and sisters. And he would sit there on weekends and just play with the family. He would take his guitar, play music. "Masi hambeni siyete, siyokudlala." It was a fun-filled home. Because one of the stories that I share in the book. Okay, let me start with the okay. I deal with the theme of. I'm sure we're going to come back to that. I also
Yeah,
deal
yeah.
with the theme of leadership. You know, those of us who have studied leadership, either as a course or studied leadership generally, many people have done MBAs or master's degrees, and you do leadership. You find a lot of things that we're being taught as leaders is to develop strategies, how to do marketing, how to lead the team, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there is little that helps a leader deal with a crisis that happens at a personal level, and at the
Yeah.
same time that happens at a professional level. How do you deal with that? Where do you get the skills to be dealing with those kinds of things? I mean, we are taught, for example, if your business is not doing well financially, the first thing that you do is you invoke the Labor Relations Act that you can dismiss your staff. Those are
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that are there, that we're taught. But I mean, are there no other options? So the book interrogates those kinds of questions
I
in the
see.
experiences that I went through.
Leadership, even what you actually learned from your father, having to lead that family. That was the leadership at a family level.
Exactly. See, now as a direct result of that, it's a very interesting story I tell in the book that when I wanted to go, those of us who are tossers, we as young men, we've got to go to the mountain for circumcision. And so when I went to my father and told him that I would like to go at the end of that year because my friends were going, and he said to me something that I'd never forgotten. He said to me, I will circumcise you when you are a man.
Okay.
I will circumcise you when you are a man.
Mm.
So, in other words, now I was dumbfounded because I was just thinking, man, what does this guy mean? And that was
But
the
you
end
want
of
to
the.
be circumcised when in your mind you're thinking you want to be circumcised so that you can become a man.
Exactly.
And he is saying, no, when you are a man, I will then do that.
Yeah, because what he was saying to me, circumcision on its own is just a symbol, a public symbol of the transformation that's taking place inside of you. And we who are society, your family and others, my brothers, my sisters, when we celebrate the fact that you are indeed a man. And so we show that by circumcising you, but the act itself does not make you a man. And so, in fact, here at home, everything you are a boy in Gwang, because you leave everything. Your bedroom is not being made. Your shoes are smelly. You come back from school, you don't even wash your uniform. All of that kind of stuff. And it says, once I start to see signs of responsibility, signs of accountability, signs of decision making, then I will help you to become, and by bringing my family and all the men in the family, so that we can say now, yes, you are a man. So as a direct result of that, I established a company which is called the Black Man's Coach, which
Okay.
which is about working with young black men to help them become men of responsibility,
Right.
men of accountability with skills. What does it mean to be a man? So, in other words, it is for both those young boys or young men who are going to be going through the circumcision. But not all cultures go through circumcision. So, even those that competencies, because you see, you need to have a transition, whether or not you go for circumcision, there must be a transition so that you transition from being a boy, an immature male, to become a mature man. So that's what it's all about. And so, but I also help work with men our age, who are saying, man, I'd like to interrogate and develop certain competencies to becoming a better man. And so through a coaching a program, work with those kinds of people. So you are right when you say my father and as leadership's lessons have translated and influenced a big chunk of what I do. Today I go to places, to churches, to wherever to speak to men about my own experiences, my challenges, but also what is it that we can do to help our young men without them, to help them realize there is value in them. All they need to do, they need support to be able to unearth that value.
Yeah. I like the comment made by Trans Bebo on the book, right on the front of the book. A story of leadership, he says. and resourcefulness in the
Mm,
face of adversity. And
mm,
I
mm.
suppose you resonate with this comment.
Yes, yes, great man, Tulani. And I thought his words were really, really meaningful. That's why I thought let's put those words up there. As I said earlier on, when it talks about adversity, this book basically narrates a number of stories, but it's premised on these two pillar stories. The one falls under this life-threatening illness. In 2011, I was diagnosed with cancer, a fairly advanced cancer, colorectal cancer. And when I was as diagnosed with that cancer, it took the wings, the wind out of my wings. It demoralized me because I was not feeling I was beginning to take off in my career. I was ambitious, focusing, playing some leadership roles in society, in church, even at work. I was like a typical man who's trying to push and provide support for his family and so on. I was a runner, marathon runner with people like
Yeah,
Osolombela and other guys, or Boysim Kize. They would come to Cape
yeah,
Town. Obviously, they would run the big marathons, but some of us would do the maybe 21 and so on. But still, I
yeah,
was trying to be healthy. I was a vegetarian. As you know, in our church, we believe in the health message. And so when this thing came, firstly due to age, but due to lifestyle issues, I was dumbfounded. And it created a huge amount of doubt and questions in my mind. Now, on top of that, whilst I was going through that, because I had to go to hospital and do a colonoscopy and an MRI scan and all of that. And the doctor told me point blank, there at hospital with my wife and children around, they had just arrived. He just walked through the doors and says, Mr. Kulati, you have cancer. Shouted like that.
oh
You,
goodness.
you know, and immediately that shut my mind and really created tremendous amount of fear in me. And so, and then now imagine that you're going through that with fear, hopelessness, despondency, disappointment, and oh, you name it. And then one time I'm sitting in my office in the organization I was running called the Paraffin Safety Association of Southern Africa, which was owned by the oil industry. And I get a call from a chairman who says to me, listen, Mr. Kulati would like you to close down this company with immediate effect, let go of all the stuff and yourself, and roll up everything. And that's just like that. So that is now another professional crisis that is happening almost the same time with this personal crisis that I was going through. Now, many responses one could give into this thing. You could insult people, you can curse God, you can just say why me, and I had all of those things. But there comes a time when you are looking at adversity in the eye, where you need to say, if I'm going to succeed here, if I'm going to triumph over this tragedy, I've got to have a different way of being, a different thought process, a different way of approaching life. So, so one of my biggest fears, I said earlier on, was fear. So one time, one of my with which is my wife had gone away. It was a Sunday morning, and I was all
Yeah,
alone at home. And I had questions in my mind, questions as a believer, as a Christian believer. I had questions to God to say, why me? And so then I took I cut the long story short. I went to the bathroom and sat there, sort of for hours, man. I would change a man's, I would change water. I had in my mind questions. I had my Bible. You know that Bible that has the spirit of prophecy in it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had that Bible. In fact, it's right here in front of me now. So I would page all the characters in the Bible that had gone through problems, man. I was not reading, but I was just paging
Just
through, just
paging
paging
through.
through. And so there was this inaudible, silent, but forceful voice that was speaking to me that said, take the Bible and put it down. You've seen, because I still had questions because I was saying, okay, you came through for Job in the end. You came through for Joseph in the end. You came through for Jesus in the end, even Paul. But how do I have guarantee that you're going to come through for me? And at that point, he said, put the Bible down. Now, I want you to look back into your own life and just consider some of the most difficult moments in your life where you were feeling just like you are feeling now. And then I even did another personal paging now in my mind of experiences of growing and all of that. And I share them in the book, by the way. And so one of them stands out. When Azama, it was on a Sunday afternoon. Must have been this time, sort of 4 o'clock and so on. Uh, I just done my standard 10, grade 12.
Right.
And at that time, I wanted to go and study further at university. But I did not have money for that. I did not my family had tried everything, man. Ayikho into babengayizamanga, but I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
I just couldn't, they just couldn't find it.
Mm.
They even had gone to the neighbors and so on. And so I'm now sitting there this Sunday afternoon. There's no one also at home on that. And I hear a knock on the door, and then this person is actually inside.
Right.
Hey, I know this voice. It's a voice of Omnusisi, who was a neighbor, was a next
In
door.
the neighborhood.
Yes, and this is nowhere to comes in, asking for my father, and my father was not there, and he says, "Why are you sleeping, Pagama?" And so on. She was a lovely, lively person, Vuka, so she says, "Take this card, an FNB, a blue FNB card. Take this card, go to an ATM, take a taxi and go to an ATM and draw the money for your registration, which is tomorrow.
Wow.
And it's the last day of registration.
Wow.
Take this card and go and get your money." Man, I was trembling. My hands were shaking. As I was at the bank, I was scared as if something was going to happen. Someone was going to come and rob me this money, And up until then, I had never held a bank card in my hand. Those days we did not have bank cards as kids.
Yes. Yes.
It was an overwhelming experience that has remained indelible in my mind. And so I came back. The following day, I went and registered. I stayed at university, did a 4-year degree. And out of those 4 years, not once did I fail. I left the university without a single debt. Remember that when I went to the school, all I had in the first year, in the first time of registration, was just the money to register. Anything else for books, nothing. So now bring your attention back to the bathroom scene.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about this. The voice, what are you most scared of? And I'm saying I had to think deeply what my fear was. And I had to go to the real bottom of what I was scared of. And what I was scared of, really, I said, I have a young wife and young children. I can see my children without a father being, as a family provider at the time, and all of that. I could see them without a house, without a back life, without anyone giving them advice, no protection, and all of that kind of stuff. And God said to me, "Listen now, now that you've told me what your fear is, and you've remembered that story from when you were a young man, when your own mother and your own father could not help you, I came through for you. So even if you die, I will take care of them." Man, that was a huge relief off my shoulders.
mm,
The fear of death, the
mm,
fear of not being there to see my family and do everything that I wanted to
yeah,
do,
mm.
the
Support
fear
them.
of not being able to provide and all of that kind of stuff just disappeared. And
Mm,
so when Nomonde came back and I told her and I said, listen, man, I'm going to do everything possible to fight this disease. But if I die, I will die happy knowing that a bigger hand, a bigger provider, far better than me, will take
mm,
care of you.
yeah,
So that was the biggest moment for me. So even now that I was now going through this other problem,
mm,
which was of a more leadership and professional way of being, that perspective that I developed when I carried me through here. Now I had to actually go through all of those challenges. I tell in the book what we tried to do, for example,
mm,
to
mm,
change the decision of the board. I
mm,
even went and reached out to the Minister of Energy at the time.
yeah,
I went up to the Director Generals and all, but the decision was made
mm,
and we couldn't do anything. So when the decision was made, me and the leadership team, we then sat down and said, okay, guys, we have lost this battle. We have lost this war battle, but
yeah,
what is it that we can still do such that our staff can have a better uh, labor law? When we looked at the
mm,
labor laws,
mm,
the labor law said if you retrench someone for obviously reasonable reasons, one of which is the closure of the company,
yeah,
you can give them a minimum of 1 week salary for every year that they'd worked. That's basically what you can give the person. I had people that had worked for us for 10
yeah,
years, 15 years.
mm,
Some of them, I joined them there. And I thought, man, what is that? We're going to give these people. So we decided we're going to propose, it's part of our plan and the budget
mm,
of
mm,
retrenchment, to pay each worker a full month salary for every year that they'd worked.
yeah,
In other words, we times it by 4. And then we're going to provide
yeah,
social, psychosocial counseling. We're going to
uh-huh,
bring in people that are going to help the staff to write their CVs. There were staff
mm,
members who were not prepared to, for example, we established a capacity building fund where a person who wanted to go and study, they can get that and use it. But we also had staff members who were not wanting to study,
yeah, yeah,
people that wanted to have business. I remember one of the ladies who was a cleaner there said, I want to sell chicken. I need a fridge. I need a stove. I need a chicken, like a group of, like what it calls the first stock and all of that. And
mm,
so what I'm trying to say is that life has challenges and
mm,
uh, we don't have the power to stop everything that's coming our way.
yeah,
But
yeah,
what we have power to do is one Stephen Covey calls, he says, between a stimulus and a response, there's a space in between.
mm,
It is within that space where you can now decide, how am I going to respond to this calamity? Am I going to let it destroy me? Am I
mm,
going to I'm going to let it to make me a bitter person, an angry
mm,
person? Or can
mm,
I look into this cloud and find a gap, even though it is still dark? The rain had not gone when the pilot found the rain was still there. The thunder was still there, but he looked for a gap and found it. So
mm,
the point I'm trying to make in these stories is saying, guys, life has challenges.
Yeah.
And by the way, there are two there are two philosophies or philosophical frameworks that I deal with in the book, which help me tremendously. The first one is from a spiritual point of view.
Right.
The second one is from a leadership point of view. The spiritual framework is what is called the great controversy,
Okay.
meta narrative. That that meta narrative, when I'm talking about Machai, is so powerful. Is to because it helps you understand that there is this battle that's taking place
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the cosmic area. We're part of this big battle, but those of us who believe in God are on the winning side.
Yeah.
But we're part of this thing. This thing is happening. We're in a war setup. So guns are shooting. People are dying and all of that kind of stuff. But it helps to understand that your death is not in vain.
Yeah.
You know, there will come a day of resurrection. So basically that was a huge me to say, I can understand. It's not like you walking into a field, suddenly you develop dubuki bomb, 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 bomb. That this is a war zone. And so you walk in life with this understanding, which is called the great controversy meta narrative. That is what I used. And I read the book again by Ellen White, The Great Controversy, and all of that. But the second one, from a leadership point of view now, because you see, as people, we are not just spiritual beings, we're human
Yeah.
beings.
Yeah.
We,
Exactly.
we have to deal with matters on a day-to-day basis. You are a leader, you're a father, there are resources that can be found. So there is a theory which is called the conservation of resources theory,
Okay.
which is written by this scholar, Hopeful. So this man found and realized that, man, leaders are going through stuff, but there is nothing that is there to to kind of help leaders being able to look inside themselves. So you've got resources that are already there. You can talk about the fact that you are still alive. That's a resource, energy resource. You are still breathing.
Yeah.
You have a personality. You have like, for example, you are able to speak, you are able to you have a great personality, you are able to make people laugh, you are able to represent yourself. So those are character resources.
Yeah.
All right. You've got other resources that make things better for you. You've got object resources. Object resources are things like a laptop, cell phone, a car, a house. All of those things, when you're going through stuff and you realize, man, I already have got some things going for me.
Yeah.
I've got some things that are going for me from an object point of view, things that are tangible.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. Yes.
Energy, although you are sick, but you still have energy, you're still breathing. All right. You've got, when people are phoning you, Oganyi, when people are coming to visit, they walk away laughing because of you are a
Yeah.
joking person. Those are the
Like
things.
they find life from you.
Exactly. Those are the things that already that you have been given by your maker, that you then look to and say, man, how do I use these things instead of allowing myself to collapse under this big cloud? How do I let life come out of me rather than let these things snuff life out of me? So that is the theory, that because when I was there, I remember going to Bishop, going to department of one of the departments we're working with there.
Yeah.
When I was in that office, this man was breathing heavily, he was sweating, he was sick. His secretary asked me to give them a bit of time because she needed to get his medication and get him to take his medication and lie a little bit there because people are sick. I think I told this story before in your program.
Yeah.
And and so as leaders, we need to look after ourselves mentally, physically, what we eat. And so one of the themes of the book is the theme which is called a new start. A new start is It's a methodology of looking after your health in a holistic way.
Okay.
All right. You see, when I was diagnosed with cancer, when I Zama,
Mm,
uh, on the day the doctor came to me and said to me, "Listen, man, you have cancer."
mm,
He had brought a lady next to him that I had not seen before.
mm.
I would learn later that this lady was actually an oncologist.
Okay.
So as soon as he finished talking to me, then the oncologist came through and started talking to me about, the next appointment, wanting my medical aid number and all of those kinds of information.
Mm,
But I said to her, listen, I just want to go home. I'll
mm.
So kind of treatment that I wanted to go through.
Yeah.
There was this one that they were telling me about, which I would call the Western type of pharmaceutical
Yeah.
kind of thing,
Treatment. Mm,
treatment. But is that the only option that is there?
mm.
And I want to make it very clear to people, because there might be people who are listening to this who have this or in advances. You need to carefully make your own decision. And I'm not
Yeah.
castigating Western medicine or pharmacy. I'm not doing that. But I
Very
needed to,
important, actually. Very important when I prepared that you're
mm,
going to mention that, because we do have people struggling with the cancerous issues. So I'm actually very interested
mm,
in what you're going to say, because others have lost the battle,
mm,
even with the Western medication. So
mm.
I'm quite invested in what you're going to say.
Exactly. Thank you. So then I went home, man, and I had to come up with a strategy and a plan of, now, how am I going to make a decision on what treatment to go for?
Mm,
Here is this given one. You get given, it comes with the package, the Western medicine, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, it's given, operation.
mm.
Now, I went to a place our church own or that our church owns in Be Free Lifestyle Center.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I heard
Yeah,
about it.
at Helderberg.
Mm,
Man, I sat down with those people and I asked and I read up before I went. I spoke to doctors, man, doctors that were trained in the medicine, in the medical field, but also doctors that were trained in the alternative care model and all of those kinds of things.
mhm.
And after having done all that research, and I thought, let me go to Be Free. They have a program there which is called New Start. New Start stands for N stands for nutrition,
Mhm.
all right? And
Yeah.
then E stands for I just forget the name now, the name for it, but W stands for water, all right?
Mm.
S stands for sunshine. You know, each of those it's an acronym for something.
For
I've
something.
detailed it very well in the book, and people
Yeah,
can
yeah,
actually read it for themselves. So
yeah,
so
yeah.
so, so basically, what I was trying to do there, I was trying to, and I went through all of those processes for 2 weeks where we changed our diet. We were
Mhm.
juicing, eating, giving the food. So the idea behind this new type model is that the body already, as a created being, you already have a immune system that can fight for you. So what you eat and what you drink, your lifestyle must help that immune system to fight your disease for you, even without all of these. Are you still there?
I'm still here. I'm listening. In fact, I'm taking notes even.
You're taking notes. So the first one is nutrition. The second one, E stands for exercise. W
Yeah,
for water. Yeah. S for sunshine. Ilanga, eli. You get
yeah,
something out of the sun. T stands
yeah.
for temperance, meaning moderation in whatever you're eating and drinking and whatever you are doing. All right.
Mm.
R stands for, so the A stands for air, breathing oxygen. Hmm? R
Mm.
stands for rest. Those of us who believe in a Seventh-day Adventist, in the
Yeah,
Sabbath
yeah.
is a day of rest. All right. And T stands for trust in God. So basically, that is the model that we decided. My wife and I sat down and said, we're going to do this thing. We
Mhm.
changed. my eating. Man, I did that. I went there to be free for 2 weeks. They have a residential place where you go,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
after
yeah.
that you come home. I did that for 4 months.
Is that the one in Maritzburg or the one in Cape Town?
There was a one in Cape Town. This was the only one then. I think they may have
Oh,
now moved. They moved it to another farm in Western Cape, and I think there was one in Bethel in Butterworth. I can't remember now what is happening, but
right.
they still operate. I phoned Dr. Newald
Level.
when I was writing this chapter, and he's the head of the one in Cape Town. He's the head of the health ministry, and so the point I'm making is that now I went to another doctor to do a second opinion after having done this lifestyle change.
Yeah,
Now it was about after between 4 and 5 months. Now,
right.
now when I went there, Ugqirha had to look at my file most
Mm.
from the previous hospital.
Yeah,
And he was so angry to say, how can the doctor not allow, not operate you immediately? I said, doctor, please just, it was my decision. Don't be harsh on that doctor.
don't be harsh on them.
And then he said, okay, what were you doing? And I told him, he said, okay, let's test you. We did the test in another hospital 4.5 months later. And the doctor said to me, Mr. Kulat, whatever you have been doing has reduced your cancer cells so much.
Wow.
Your cancer cells have been reduced. But as a doctor, I would still advise that you still go ahead and do an operation on what is left of because Kulendau in this part, the cancer cells have reduced, but they still are there. And so that we can destroy them, we still advise you to go into chemotherapy, a bit of it, as well as an operation.
Right.
The body had been able to fight back from the lifestyle changes that I had made. Let me just say that having to need to make this decision, and I say in the book that in the decision that I took, I was also taking a risk
Mm.
because during that 4.5 months, if the cancer cells could have grown. I don't know,
Yeah, you're
but
actually taking a very big risk.
a very, very big risk. But the point I'm making is that when it comes to health matters, when it comes to things like operations and things, you need to take the decisions into your own hands so that in the final analysis you can live with it. There are people. I remember when I was after I had gone through this, I received a phone call from someone in Port Elizabeth, and they said to me, "Can you talk to this guy? This guy is refused because he believes in the health message, in
Right.
alternative medication. He says he does not want to take pills and so on. He says he does not want to go and see doctors. Can you speak to him?" And I asked him if I didn't speak to him, but I asked if he wanted to really speak. But it turns out that he didn't want to speak. From what I understand, that guy died
Oh, man.
simply because he was not open-minded enough. And I don't want to come across as if I'm blaming him, but
Yeah,
he had closed his mind from all forms of medicines that are there that are not against godly principles. Because you must remember that doctors who are using pharmaceutical, they are trained. Those people are also trained. And they are also children of God. But also those people who are using natural medicine and all of that, they are also children of God. So there's a
yeah,
point at which you need to make up your mind about what is best in terms of your decision. But this second model helps to prevent things from happening. What the pharmaceutical model does is to deal with a problem that's already there without dealing necessarily with the symptom, with the causes.
yeah.
So this is where I want people to be very, very careful, so that they don't come and think that I'm against this medication, but I'm promoting a healthy lifestyle
Yeah.
a new start model of life way before we get into these problems, so that when we get there, at least our bodies are. And I'm saying, even if you go through all of the new start, you may still have cancer,
Mm.
but at least you would have tried by all means to prevent it from taking place.
True,
Yeah.
true, true.
So I don't know if
Wow.
I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. It hits quite at length and very profound, I must say.
Thank you.
Now, Prophet, the two more things we need to go through, and then we can wrap up our conversation.
Sure.
The first one is your book in terms of the market that you're looking at. Are you looking at people who believe in God, or this is just a general population where either it doesn't matter whether they believe or not?
Man, this book is the book of the world. It's for everyone.
Hmm.
Obviously, who I am comes through the book. Who I am is that I'm an Adventist. I don't. It's not that. That is not the audience for the book.
Oh, okay.
It's for everyone, even people that are not believers. If you are a person, you are likely going to have a personal life-threatening disease. If you're a professional or a leader, you're likely going to have a livelihood threatening crisis. So this book is written for three types of people. There are people who are going through these kinds of crises that I described. It can be divorce, it could be depression,
Yeah.
it could be anything else, but people are going through stuff. So this book is about them saying there are options for you. You can still make it. That's the first group. The second group is for those people who have gone through crises in their lives and made it to the other side. It is to celebrate with them, but also to encourage them to keep going, because as much as you can win one struggle now, in 5 years' time, another struggle can come. So this
True.
book is about giving you a positive outlook on life. It's not your pop psychology. It's about foundational things that need to be done. So that the third group is for those of us who are still swimming in the pools of life,
Yeah.
flying in the aeroplanes. On social media, everything is fine on our Instagram. It's for those people, everything, they've not had problems, they have work, they have everything. It's about saying to them, things can change at any moment, but you don't have to struggle the way that I did struggle, because I did not expect this. You can read this book in such a way that when these things do happen, because they will sooner or later, at least you have capacity to handle them in a far better way.
Beautiful. Now, Prophet, as I've been saying that we're now landing our plane, you are now an author,
Yes, sir.
a published author at that. Looking back in your life, have you, in your wildest dreams, thought at some point in my life I would write a book, or it's been something that has been coming a long way?
Man, if you were to ask me that question when I was 8 years, when I was 14 years, when I was 30 years, you know, there was no chance that I saw myself as that. You must remember that the apartheid system was designed so that they can make us look here and now and not look
Yeah,
into the
true,
future.
true, true.
And so I struggled with that as well,
Mm,
even way after democracy. And I talk in the book about some of my experiences with racism,
mm,
where I felt like where I was working at some point, what they were valuing was what I could do more than me. What they were valuing was my function more than me.
mhm.
And if I were to drop dead, they would just move on as if I had not
Yep,
existed.
yep,
And this is
yep.
a problem with corporations and with organizations that we spend so much time on, such that we're even prepared to sacrifice our families and long-term relationships with our
Mm,
children and so on. And so basically, I never saw myself as an author, but I've always had a sense, Because when I was about 9 years old, I was sitting at church. In fact, I went there and sat in that seat. I was sat on that day when I was young. Recently, when I was in Port Alfred in July, I sat around that place where I was sitting there and someone was singing, there was preaching, but I had this vision of a cloud, a white cloud. And I had this sense that my life would mean something, I would be a bright, I would provide clarity, I would take leadership. I had that. And I tell about that in the story, but I never
Yeah.
knew that it would ever happen. And I had forgotten. So writing a book, it's something that came to me quite late in life, after I had had other these confirmations that I was not here on this earth as a mistake,
Yeah.
but I
There was
was here
purpose.
to provide, to be a card for a bank card for another person.
Oh wow.
So this
Beautiful.
book,
And an
re-
experience that you had in early in life.
exactly, this book represents that card that is nowhere to give me. And I'm giving now this book to other people to say to them, go to your own bank, go to your life and draw something out, because there is hope for the future. There is more in us than we think.
Mhm. Wow. And then, Prophet, how much is the book and where do people get hold of it?
Okay. This book, the price of it is 315. People think I'm saying 315, 350. It's 315.
315.
315. And by the way, a portion of the price is going to SOS Children's Fund, an
Oh,
organization
okay.
an organization which I lead currently in South Africa, which looks after children who are orphaned and vulnerable, children who are at loss of their threat to lose their parental care. So portion of that is going there. So people can get it from me if they send me a email at this email address:
Okay, what is the email?
Patrick Kulati,
Mhm.
Patrick, PATRICKKULATI, at gmail.com. They can,
Okay.
they can also visit my website, www.kulati.com. There you can see other things, like, for example, coaching services. You can see pictures of the launches and all of that, but the contact details are also there. I can also give them a WhatsApp number that they can use: 082
Yes.
300 7108. They just need to send us a WhatsApp message to there. And then, because the books, I mean, there are books in Cape Town. I'm sending some books in PE. They're going to be distributed, but for now they're being found from me,
Oh, I
and
see. I see.
from my team that I'm working with. Uh,
Lovely.
because just as a last parting, people ask me, why is this book not found in exclusive books and all these books? My answer is this: the way that the publishing industry is set up, there is what is called traditional publishing, where you have to go and get them to do your book, and then they are the ones
Yeah.
who send it to these people. Now, the, the,
So you are
the
self-published.
I'm self-published, because if you go the traditional route, they take ownership of everything. They can delay, they can change your title, they can change everything, and at the end, they pay the author 10 to 15% of the price of the book. But this book is self-published, but it is well edited. There are over
Yeah.
180 like references at the back at the book. Well edited, is gone through vigorous editing, and so that's why we're selling it like this. But once we sell a certain number, let's say 1,000 units, then we can go to these big distribution channels and
Yes.
negotiate with
Yes.
them. Yeah, so people can get it from those contact details so far.
Lovely. And then in places that you are not necessarily available at, would you then dispatch it via postal services, and would you charge for those fees?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much for that. For example, someone contacted me about wanting a book in Ngob. Okay, we're gonna send it to Pep Store there, because,
Okay.
but otherwise we use Postnet. So basically, Postnet ranges between 100 Rand and 120. And the reason it's 120 is because if you want to put the book in that envelope, so that the book does not isotobog, then we add a little bit.
Not going to be damaged.
Yeah, it won't be damaged, yes. But if we put it in the plastic, it's going to be 100, and then you get it anywhere in the country. But it's going to be from Postnet to Postnet. And then if a person wants it to be sent to a PEP store through the other way, then we can do that as well. But they pay for that in addition to the 315. The 315 is just for the book, and then anything else for courier, the person who buys has to add that. So if you want the book to be couriered, you have to pay 415 minimum.
I see.
Yeah.
Lovely. So your distribution points are Johannesburg, Cape Town,
and Port Elizabeth. We're gonna be sending to Durban soon. We're planning to do a launch there, and we are still negotiating also in Port Elizabeth. So as the demand grows, then we respond. I know, for example, even I'm going to Kenya in November. There's a demand for the book there too. So what I'm trying to say is that we respond to the demand, and then we make means to get the book where people need it. There's nothing that will prevent us from getting the book in your hand.
All right. Thank you so much. Prophet, I'm going to repeat those details. Those who want a book can go through to send an email, patrick@gmail.com, PATRICK, Kulati, KULATI @gmail.com. Otherwise, you can also send a WhatsApp to 082-300-7108. Visit his website also, www. Personal copy of mine. So definitely looking forward to the success, a great success of this book. Speaking again, in a couple of check how far are we and how we are doing so that we can actually spread the word.
Thank you.
Let me sneak in two last questions now, two more questions. Well, number one, you've now authored a book, you're a published author.
Yeah.
Can we look forward to another word from you?
Yeah, in fact, last week I was talking to my editor. Yes, I can say, yeah. So please look forward to another book that will be coming. But I do want to give this child a chance to grow and stand on its own before another baby is on the way. But yes, there's a book or two that will be coming. And so far, I just need to say I really appreciate the support that we're receiving from people, and it's been overwhelming. It's been overwhelming. Wherever I go, people want the copy, and I'd like to encourage those who have received the copy to write a feedback, to write a review, and just tell us what are you getting from the book. If you feel you want to criticize, it's okay. What is important is that as an author, as a person, I want to grow. I can only grow on the basis of how people are reflecting. You can quibble with a particular idea or whatever the case may be. Let's talk. So I'm on social media, Patrick Kulati, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on YouTube. Moments of insight and growth. So let's have a conversation.
Fantastic. And the last one, perhaps this one is a parting shot. As a leader yourself, and you speak a lot about leadership in your book, and this is not part of the book, by the way. I just want to mine your mind here. Long-standing debate or question that I would like you to deal, and unfairly so, in the literally dying moments of this conversation. Are leaders born or leaders made?
There are certain competencies that you are born with, like the ability to speak, for example. But there's a big chunk that you have to develop as a leader. There are things that you get given. There are people who come up with presence already. When they walk through the door, there's a presence about them. That's a potent for being a leader. Like there's a sign, but if they don't develop and how they use that presence, so I believe that you can develop leadership. In fact, that's what one of the things that I do as part of my coaching, looking at competencies. How do you give feedback? How do you how do you become present? For example, I was coaching a young guy who is been promoted from being a specialist to taking a managerial role. How do you transition that so that now you're taking a much more leadership role so you can develop that capacity and competencies? So my answer to you is that some are born, but they die before they bloom. Others, others do not have enough of all of what is needed, but they can still work on it. But we all of us have something, have a sign, have a ihlumelo that we need to develop.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Brapet, for joining us, and thank you for giving us your time generously. And the AWR family, we're grateful very much for your time and insights that you have given us. We want to pray that your book is a great success, and that sometime in the future we'll have a conversation about how you guys are doing.
Thank you, sir.
Be blessed and stay blessed together with the family.
Same to you. Thank you.
Involved in making sure that this book is a great success.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Well, that there is Patrick Bulati, who is an author of a book, A Gap in the Cloud, exciting, fascinating book. I do want to say, if you are around, you've had the contact details, make sure that you get yourself a copy. I definitely shall be in contact with him as well to make sure that I get myself a copy. It is 25 minutes after the hour, 5 o'clock.